Riley had always been a planner. Her life was meticulously organized, from her color-coded calendar to her perfectly curated Instagram feed. At 27, she had a successful career as a marketing executive, a trendy loft apartment, and a close circle of friends. On paper, everything was perfect. But lately, Riley couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. It was a crisp autumn morning when Riley first laid eyes on Julian. She was power walking to her favorite coffee shop, tapping away at her phone, when she collided with something solid. Or rather, someone. "I'm so sorry," Riley exclaimed, mortified. She looked up to see piercing blue eyes and a crooked smile. "No worries," the stranger replied. "I wasn't looking where I was going either." There was something magnetic about him. Disheveled dark hair, a day's worth of stubble, paint-splattered jeans. He was the antithesis of Riley's carefully polished world. "I'm Julian," he said, extending his hand. "Riley," she replied, shaking it. A jolt of electricity passed between them. "Well, Riley, since I nearly knocked you over, the least I can do is buy you a coffee to make up for it." Riley glanced at her watch. She was already running late for a meeting, but something made her pause. "You know what? I'd like that," she heard herself say. Over lattes, Riley learned that Julian was an artist who had recently moved to the city. He spoke passionately about his work, gesturing animatedly with paint-stained hands. Riley found herself captivated, forgetting all about her missed meeting. "So what about you?" Julian asked. "What gets you excited?" Riley opened her mouth to give her usual elevator pitch about her career accomplishments, but looking into Julian's earnest eyes, she found herself saying, "I'm not sure anymore. I used to love painting when I was younger, but somewhere along the way, I guess I lost touch with that creative side of myself." Julian's eyes lit up. "Well, we'll have to change that, won't we? I'm having an open studio night this weekend. You should come by. Maybe it'll rekindle that artistic spark." Riley hesitated. It wasn't the type of event she'd normally attend, but Julian's enthusiasm was infectious. "I'd love to," she found herself saying. That Saturday, Riley stood outside an industrial warehouse, second-guessing her decision. But before she could talk herself out of it, Julian appeared. "You made it!" he exclaimed, pulling her into a hug. Riley stiffened momentarily, unused to such casual affection, but Julian's warmth was disarming. Inside, the warehouse had been transformed into a vibrant gallery space. Enormous abstract canvases adorned the walls, splashed with bold colors and textures. In one corner, an interactive installation invited visitors to add their own brushstrokes to a communal painting. "What do you think?" Julian asked, watching Riley's reaction closely. "It's alive," Riley breathed. "I've never seen anything like it." Julian beamed. "Come on, I want to show you something." He led her to a smaller side room. Inside was a single canvas, a swirling galaxy of deep blues and purples, flecked with pinpricks of white. It was breathtaking. "This is my favorite piece," Julian said softly. "I call it Possibility." Riley stood transfixed. She felt a stirring deep within her, something she hadn't experienced in years. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Julian handed her a paintbrush. "Want to add to it?" Riley's eyes widened. "Oh, I couldn't possibly—" "Sure you can," Julian encouraged. "Art isn't about perfection. It's about expression." Hesitantly, Riley dipped the brush in paint. She hovered over the canvas for a moment before making a tentative stroke. To her surprise, it felt right, natural. Soon she was painting with abandon, losing herself in the process. When she finally stepped back, Julian was watching her with a soft smile. "See? I knew you had it in you," he said. Riley looked at the canvas in wonder. Her edition wasn't perfect, but it felt authentic in a way her carefully curated life rarely did. "Thank you," she said. "I'd forgotten how good this feels." From that night on, Riley found herself drawn into Julian's world. They spent weekends exploring quirky art galleries and hole-in-the-wall cafes. Julian introduced her to his eclectic group of artist friends. For the first time in years, Riley felt truly alive. But as her feelings for Julian deepened, doubts began to creep in. Their worlds were so different. Julian lived paycheck to paycheck, pouring everything into his art. Riley had worked hard to build her stable, successful life. Could those two realities truly coexist? These worries came to a head one rainy Sunday afternoon. Riley and Julian were curled up on his worn leather couch, sharing a bottle of wine. Julian was animatedly describing his latest project idea. And then I thought, what if the entire installation was made of recycled materials? A commentary on consumerism and waste, you know? Riley nodded, only half listening. Her mind was preoccupied with the stack of work emails awaiting her attention. Julian trailed off, noticing her distraction. Hey, where'd you go just now? Riley sighed. I'm sorry, I was just thinking about all the work I need to catch up on tonight. Julian's brow furrowed. But it's Sunday. Can't it wait until tomorrow? You don't understand, Riley said, frustration creeping into her voice. I have responsibilities. I can't just blow everything off to finger paint all day. As soon as the words left her mouth, Riley regretted them. Julian recoiled as if he'd been slapped. Is that really what you think I do? He asked quietly. No, I didn't mean... Riley backpedaled, but the damage was done. Julian stood up abruptly. Maybe you should go. Julian, wait. But he had already retreated to his studio, closing the door firmly behind him. Riley left, feeling hollow. She threw herself into work, trying to ignore the ache in her chest. But everything felt flat and lifeless compared to the vibrant world she'd experienced with Julian. A week passed with no contact. Riley told herself it was for the best. They were too different. But she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd made a terrible mistake. On Friday evening, Riley found herself standing outside Julian's warehouse. Before she could lose her nerve, she knocked. Julian answered, surprise flickering across his face. Riley, what are you doing here? I needed to see you, Riley said. Can we talk? Julian hesitated, then nodded, stepping aside to let her in. Inside, Riley's eyes widened. The space had been completely transformed. Hundreds of origami cranes hung from the ceiling, creating a shimmering canopy. Each one was folded from pages of discarded books and magazines. What is all this? Riley breathed. My latest installation, Julian explained. It's about finding beauty in the discarded, giving new life to things others might overlook. Riley's throat tightened with emotion. It's incredible. Julian's expression softened. I'm glad you like it. I thought of you while I was making it. Riley's heart skipped a beat. You did? Julian nodded. I realized something this week. My life was pretty one-dimensional before I met you. All I cared about was my art. But you've shown me there's beauty in structure and planning too, in building something lasting. Riley felt tears pricking at her eyes. I'm so sorry for what I said last week. The truth is, you've opened my eyes too. I'd forgotten how to live in the moment, how to find joy in creating. You make me want to be braver, to take risks. Julian took a step closer. So where does that leave us? Riley met his gaze. I don't know, but I do know that I don't want to lose you, or this feeling. Maybe we can find a middle ground? A slow smile spread across Julian's face. I'd like that. He reached out, gently brushing a tear from Riley's cheek. Then he leaned in, pressing his lips to hers in a tender kiss. As they broke apart, Riley felt a sense of possibility unfurling within her. She didn't have all the answers, but for once, that was okay. With Julian by her side, she was ready to paint outside the lines. In the months that followed, Riley and Julian worked to blend their two worlds. It wasn't always easy, but they were committed to making it work. Riley carved out more time for creativity, setting up a small painting corner in her apartment. She found that allowing herself this outlet actually made her more productive at work, approaching problems with fresh eyes and innovative solutions. Julian, inspired by Riley's drive, began to take his career more seriously. He started keeping better financial records and even opened a savings account. Riley helped him put together a professional portfolio, which led to more gallery showings and commissions. They each pushed the other out of their comfort zones in the best ways. Julian convinced Riley to take a spontaneous weekend trip to the coast, where they spent hours beachcombing and stargazing. Riley introduced Julian to the joys of meal planning and budgeting, which allowed him to splurge on higher quality art supplies. Of course, there were still moments of friction. Riley sometimes felt overwhelmed by Julian's free-spirited friends and their late-night parties. Julian occasionally chafed against the structure Riley craved in their relationship, but they were learning to communicate openly and find compromises. 1 year after their first meeting, Julian surprised Riley with a special date. He blindfolded her and led her to a familiar location, the coffee shop where they'd first collided. "Okay, you can look now," Julian said, removing the blindfold. Riley gasped. The entire cafe had been transformed into an art gallery, featuring a series of paintings that told the story of their relationship. There was the fateful coffee spill, their first kiss under the origami cranes, lazy Sundays painting together, and countless other precious moments. "Julian, this is amazing," Riley breathed, taking it all in. Julian squeezed her hand. "I wanted to show you how much you've changed my life, how you've colored my world in ways I never imagined." Riley felt tears welling up. "You've done the same for me. I never knew I could feel this free." Julian led her to the final painting, a beautiful rendering of two hands intertwined, one splattered with paint, the other holding a sleek smartphone. "This is us," Julian explained. "Two different worlds coming together to create something beautiful." He dropped to one knee, pulling out a ring box. Inside was a delicate silver band inlaid with a rainbow of tiny gemstones. "Riley, will you marry me? Will you keep painting this masterpiece with me for the rest of our lives?" Riley's heart soared. "Yes! 1,000 times yes!" As Julian slipped the ring on her finger, Riley marveled at how far they'd come. She thought back to that first day, when she'd been so focused on her rigid schedule that she almost missed out on the greatest love of her life. Now, looking into Julian's eyes, she saw endless possibilities stretching out before them. Their life together wouldn't always be perfect or predictable, but it would be vibrant, passionate, and uniquely theirs. As they sealed their engagement with a kiss, Riley knew that the best works of art and the greatest love stories are created when we have the courage to color outside the lines. In the years that followed, Riley and Julian's relationship continued to evolve and deepen. They faced challenges as all couples do, but their commitment to growth and understanding saw them through. Their wedding was a perfect blend of their two styles, elegantly planned by Riley, with plenty of whimsical artistic touches from Julian. They exchanged vows in a garden filled with living sculptures Julian had created. Riley's vows were beautifully calligraphed on handmade paper, while Julian painted his directly onto canvas during the ceremony. As they settled into married life, Riley and Julian continued to inspire each other. Riley's marketing firm took on more creative clients, allowing her to flex her artistic muscles in her professional life. Julian's art gained recognition in the fine art world, leading to gallery shows in New York and Paris. They traveled the world together, soaking up inspiration from different cultures and landscapes. Riley learned to embrace spontaneity, while Julian discovered the satisfaction of achieving long-term goals. When they decided to start a family, it was both thrilling and terrifying. How would they balance their creative pursuits with the demands of parenthood? But as with everything else in their relationship, they approached it as a team. Their daughter Aria was born on a warm spring day. She had Riley's determined chin and Julian's soulful eyes. From the start, it was clear she had inherited both of her parents' creative spirits. Parenthood brought new challenges and joys. Sleepless nights were softened by Julian's lullabies and Riley's bedtime stories. Their home became a wonderland of finger paintings and pillow forts. Date nights now often involved family art projects or dance parties in the living room. As Aria grew, so did Riley and Julian's appreciation for life's small moments. They found beauty in messy high chair trays and crayon scribbles on walls. Every day brought new opportunities to see the world through their daughter's wonder-filled eyes. Of course, it wasn't always easy. There were times when the demands of work and family left little energy for creative pursuits. Riley sometimes felt the urge to micromanage every aspect of their lives, while Julian struggled with the mundane responsibilities of adulting. But they had learned to weather these storms together. They made time for regular creative dates, where they could reconnect over art projects or brainstorming sessions. They took turns giving each other space for solo creative retreats, and they never stopped encouraging each other's dreams. As they approached their 10th wedding anniversary, Riley and Julian decided to embark on their most ambitious project yet, opening a community art center. It would be a place where people of all ages and backgrounds could explore their creativity, blending Riley's business acumen with Julian's artistic vision. The process of bringing this dream to life was both exhilarating and exhausting. There were late nights poring over business plans, heated debates over design choices, and moments of doubt when it all seemed impossible. But on opening day, as they watched Arya cut the ribbon with her little safety scissors, Riley and Julian knew it had all been worth it. The center was a vibrant, welcoming space, filled with the buzz of creativity and connection. As they mingled with the crowd, Riley overheard a young woman say to her friend, "Can you believe this place? It's like they took everything good about art and organization and smooshed it together." Riley caught Julian's eye across the room, and they shared a secret smile. That was exactly what they had done, not just with the art center, but with their entire life together. Later that night, as they slow danced in the empty gallery, surrounded by the fruits of their shared vision, Riley rested her head on Julian's chest. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't bumped into each other that day?" she murmured. Julian kissed the top of her head. "Sometimes, but then I remember that with you, I believe in fate. We were always meant to find each other." Riley smiled, thinking of all the twists and turns that had led them to this moment. Their love story wasn't perfect or conventional. It was messy and colorful and constantly evolving, but it was theirs, and it was beautiful. As they swayed together under the soft gallery lights, Riley felt a familiar spark of inspiration. Tomorrow, she decided, she would start a new painting, something to capture this feeling of contentment and possibility. And she knew, without a doubt, that Julian would be right there beside her, ready to add his own brushstrokes to their masterpiece.